Hi there, everybody. My name is Katie Gill. I am the cataloging librarian at the Mississippi Library Commission, and I am also a really, really big fan of manga. I have read a lot of manga. It is embarrassing how much money I have spent on manga. And so, because I have read a lot and spent an aggressive amount of money, I, not to toot my own horn, but I think I am a very good fit to present this webinar on Reader's Advisory Manga 101. So, this is just a quick and dirty overview of what manga is, some terms you might need to know when building a manga collection for your library, as well as a few recommendations in various age groups, as well as some series that are shorter, some series that are longer, some series that aren't series but are standalone volumes, and etc. So, what is manga anyway? Basically, at its core, manga is just comics. Literally, the word manga is the Japanese word for comics. However, in the West, in America, Canada, Western Europe, etc., manga has become a loan word for Japanese comics or comics that are drawn in a similar style to comics that are originally printed in Japan. Manga is very popular. It's a hot topic. It also has some merch probably sold at the store at Hot Topic because in 2020, NPD BookScan reported an increase of nearly 43% in the manga category. 4 of the top 15 New York Times bestseller graphic books and manga for April 2022 were manga, and sales of print manga titles increased by 3.6 million units from the first quarter of 2020 to the first quarter of 2021. So, manga sells a lot and people are reading it a lot. But how do you read manga? Because usually you have to read it a certain way. So manga is often read right to left. You read panels from right to left, top to bottom, then do the same with the speech bubbles. And it's printed in a way where you can read it right to left. So if you get a book in your library, you might think, wait a moment, this is a misprint, but it's not. It's printed that way. And also, if you get a book like that, if you'll flip to the back, if you open it Western style, like you would expect to read a book published in America, there will usually be a page in the front. Well, what we think of the front, what is the back of the book, saying something like, hey, you're reading this the wrong way. Here's the way to read it. But I have taken a screen cap from a popular manga, Sailor Moon, and labeled it for how you can read manga. So the green letters are the panels, and that's the order in which you read the panels. You go panel A, B, C, D, E, F. And then the smaller red numbers are the order for which you read the speech bubbles. So that way you get the sequence that the page is trying to tell of Usagi is late for school. She is waiting in the hallway. She is eating her lunch. Number 2, terms you should know. So this is my main big beef with the manga publishing industry in the West. Since manga was originally published in Japan, a lot of manga review sites, manga publishers, distribution companies, etc., they use loan words from Japan to help describe the manga. And they go in assuming that everybody knows what these loan words are. So this can be a pain when you're reading a review of a manga in something like Library Journal, and they use a word or a term that you've got no idea what it means. So we have a very quick and dirty overview of some terms that you might see when you are researching manga and deciding what to purchase for your library collection. So shonen is a genre generally aimed at young boys, often ages 13 to 18. Seinen is aimed at adult men, often 18 plus. Shoujo, young girls, 13 to 18. Josei, adult women, 18 plus. BL stands for boys love, and it's a genre focused on same-sex relationships between men. And these are generally more chaste than the yaoi, which is same-sex relationship between men, which are more explicit than BL. I know that when some people hear the term boys love, they might be a little hesitant about it. But with boys love manga, we have one recommended later on in the presentation, spoiler alert, and it's a perfectly safe, chaste, cute manga that is perfect for ages 13 plus. But as always, you'll still want to do a double check with the doing more information to determine the level of explicitness the manga actually is. Even more terms. So light novel is a genre of literature in Japan targeted towards young adults. Popular light novels are often adapted into manga. Danmei is a genre of Chinese literature focused on romantic relationships between male characters. I'm mentioning danmei as well as manhwa, which are comics produced in Korea, because a lot of the major companies that bring Japanese manga to the West will often occasionally have danmei or manhwa titles as well. And also these titles are also gaining more and more popularity with the general manga reading crowd. So anime is animated television originally created in Japan. Popular manga are often adapted into anime. And there's chance that you've watched some anime before, like Pokemon, that's an anime. Dragon Ball Z, that's an anime. Sailor Moon, that's an anime. Some anime is occasionally dubbed into the West and shown on channels like Cartoon Network, children's cartoon channels, and there are even some channels that have specific that just show nothing but anime on some of the more premium channels or freemium channels if you've got like a Roku or Sling TV or something. And OEL stands for Original English Language. They are comics that are originally written and published in English but drawn in a manga style. You occasionally hear these called Amerimanga, but I've seen OEL used more often than that. And then there is Yuri, which is a genre focused on same-sex relationships between women. There are a lot less same-sex relationships between women manga that have become popular enough to become published and distributed in America than there are same-sex relationships between men manga. So that's why there is the boys love and yaoi delineation, while as there's not a delineation between sexually explicit and more chaste manga that is same-sex relationships between women. Although as with all genres terms, these can be subjectives. So most manga were originally serialized in magazines. These magazines have titles like Shonen Jump, Ribbon, things like that. And so the magazines are targeted towards a certain demographic. Shonen Jump is targeted towards boys ages 13 to 18. However, that's just the magazine. The manga gets that demographic label because it's published in a magazine that is targeted towards that demographic. That doesn't necessarily mean that the manga is appropriate for the audience that it's trying to target. It might actually be even more appropriate for a different magazine. Some things labeled seinen, they're labeled that because they are published in a seinen magazine, but they might be perfectly fine for small children. So with this, we've got an example on the left of this manga called Kaiju Girl Caramelize. It was published in a shonen magazine, which means that it's published in a magazine that is explicitly targeting itself to boys ages 13 to 18 years old, but it is a romantic comedy. So you might find more success if you're a librarian doing a display or making reader's advisory. You might find more success targeting Kaiju Girl Caramelize to young women instead of young men. One more brief quick note. Manga series can be very long. Before starting a manga collection or expanding the manga collection in your library, you'll want to develop a collection policy. Some popular manga can run for literally dozens of volumes. If you want to collect every volume in a series, you might run out of space. So if your collection policy says something like, when starting a series, you'll try and collect all the books of the series, put a little asterisk on there for the manga. Like, think about that for a moment. Because, for example, You've got series like Case Closed and One Piece, which have published over 82 volumes in the West and are still going. I'm pretty sure that by the time this goes out, or even if you're watching it later, One Piece will have definitely hit its 100th volume, might have gone all the way up to like 120. These series can run for a while. Like, think of it like how with American comics way back in the 1970s and 1980s, you would have things like Uncanny X-Men issue number 363. Think of it as the same sort of way. So now we are getting into the recommendation section of this webinar, and I'm going to start things off with all ages picks. The first pick is Chi's Sweet Home by Konami Kanata. As you can see from the lovely little sticker on the right-hand corner of the image, this is a New York Times bestseller. It's a comedy and a family drama. It is very cute, very adorable. It's about a newborn kitten who finds herself lost and then gets herself adopted by a family who are living in an apartment where pets aren't permitted. It's a very cute series. It is absolutely adorable. It would be a fit for small children because the young boy, Yohei, he's very young himself. He's only like 4 or 5. And Chi is a very cute, very adorable cat. It is cute and fluffy and very sweet. NICOLA Traveling Around the Demon's World by Asayagi Miyanaga. So this is a series about a young girl named NICOLA who ends up traveling through the demon's world. This one's unique because the art style is a lot more European. There, as you can see in the review, it's gotten a lot of comparisons to the Moomins and the comic turned Netflix TV show Hilda. So if you are looking for something that is printed in the manga style but might have an art style more accessible to Western readers, NICOLA Traveling Around the Demon's World might be a good fit. It is also very cute, very charming. NICOLA is a darling character, and it is 4 volumes, and it's ongoing at the moment. YUZU the Pet Vet. So 11-year-old YUZU works at an animal hospital. This is, despite the very cute cover, this is a lot more of a dramatic manga because YUZU the Pet Vet does not sugarcoat some of the realities of taking care of animals. I'm pretty sure in the first volume, she deals with a dog that has dementia. And so it doesn't sugarcoat this, but it tells these stories and talks about these issues in a way that is appropriate for younger children. YUZU the Pet Vet is 7 volumes. It is ongoing. It is definitely something that I would recommend for the animal lover in your life, but get a bead on your animal lover first, because if it's the sort of kid who cries at Old Yeller and does not want to deal with any sort of trauma with animals, this might not be a good fit. But if you've got a kid who's interested in being a doctor or being a vet or in the more scientific side of things, this might be a good fit for them. Zozo Zombie. It is a horror, but it's a very goofy horror because it's targeted towards small kids. It can get a little gross at times. There's a little bit of toilet humor, but as we all know from anyone who's had to deal with a small child, small kids like gross things. They like butts. They like toilet humor. And the humor is gross, but in an appropriate way for a younger audience. So Zozo Zombie is about a zombie boy who gets into all sorts of shenanigans and misadventures and has fun times being a zombie. It is by Yasunari Nagatoshi. It is 11 volumes long, and it is a completed series. So these are recommendations for younger teens or a middle grade audience. First up is Tokyo Mew Mew by Reiko Yoshida and Mia Ikumi. This is a combination romance and action series set in the magical girl genre. The magical girl genre is a specific subgenre of manga that involves teen girls transforming into superheroes and fighting evil to help save the day. The evil in this Tokyo Mew Mew is a race of aliens that have come to the Earth to corrupt its environment. Tokyo Mew Mew has an environmentalist bend, as there is a focus on protecting the environment as well as learning about endangered species. So Tokyo Mew Mew is published in 3 volumes. It's completed. There is a sequel series called Tokyo Mew Mew a la mode, which only has 1 volume, and it has an upcoming anime adaptation. It will be releasing in summer of 22. The anime is going to be titled Tokyo Mew Mew New because it is a reboot. The Tokyo Mew Mew originally got an anime adaptation back in the early 2000s, and the new anime adaptation is a new relaunch of the manga. But so that way you might get older viewers who are interested in Tokyo Mew Mew as well as younger kids. But it is a very charming, very cute, very perfect for 12-year-old girls sort of series. Next up is Cells at Work. So this is an interesting one because it straddles the line between comedy and educational. Cells at Work is set inside the human body, and the cells of the human body are anthropomorphized. So in the cover image, the guy in white, he's a white blood cell, and the girl in red, she's a red blood cell, and it follows their adventures as they go throughout the human body. So with Cells at Work, it is educational. It helps explore how the body works, as well as explore things like diseases, injuries, and how your body helps fight and repair and combat these sort of infections. Cells at Work is by Akane Shimizu. It is completed. There are 6 volumes. It has an anime adaptation that premiered a few years ago. And there are a lot of spin-off series, including Cells at Work Baby, which focuses on babies, and Cells at Work Bacteria, which focuses on bacteria in the body. It is gory, but it's gory for a middle school audience. I wouldn't necessarily recommend this to smaller children. Witch Hat Atelier by Kamome Shirahama. This is perfect for that kid who is really into fantasy. If they've read Harry Potter, if they've read Percy Jackson, then Witch Hat Atelier is the series to get them on. So Coco is a young girl who wants to be a witch, but she's not born with a gift for magic. However, she meets a traveling magician called Quifre, and the 2 of them start to work together to help Coco learn magic and become more entrenched in this magical world. The art is gorgeous. The backgrounds are lush. There's some unique things with panel composition. And this is going back earlier with me talking about how you need to do some research about genres and don't take all the genres for granted. You'll see Witch Hat Atelier classified as seinen, but that's just because it was published in a seinen magazine, the magazine targeted towards boys ages 18 up. When you read the manga, though, this is definitely the sort of thing that a younger viewer, younger reader would greatly enjoy of any gender. So I'd recommend Witch Hat Atelier to anyone 12 and up, middle school, or even high school range who wants to get lost in a really good, really charming fantasy story with lush artwork, a compelling protagonist, and a really solid narrative. And it is also getting an upcoming anime adaptation. I do not think that at the time of recording, there is much details of the adaptation aside from this is going to happen. But that is, if you want to read the book before you watch the show, get on it right now. So go for it, Nakamura. Nakamura is a shy boy who falls in love with one of his classmates, Hirose. But Nakamura is a klutz. He does not know how to confess his love. He gets clumsy. He bungles things up. This is a very sweet LGBTQ rom-com. And it's classified as boys love, but it is very chaste. It is very adorable. Most of the volume is spent with Nakamura trying to confess his love that doesn't even actually happen until at the end. But it's a very sweet, charming, comedic story about this guy who just cannot get the guts up to tell his friend that he loves him. There's an upcoming sequel series called Go For It Again, Nakamura. I do not know off the top of my head when that will be published. I believe it will be released sometime in either late 22 or early 23, but go for it. Nakamura is one volume, just one volume. It's a standalone. You can go through it in a day, and it is so cute and so charming, and I highly recommend it. So these are recommendations for young adult or older teens. First up, we have Spy Family by Tetsuya Endo. You don't pronounce the X in Spy Family. It's therefore a stylization choice. Spy Family is about a world-class spy who starts a fake family. He picks a terrifying assassin for his wife and a psychic child, though he does not know that this child is psychic, this cute little telepathic 5-year-old to be the child in his fake family. It's an action, it's a comedy, it's a spy drama. It has a lot of little bit for everyone. It's 7 volumes, it's currently ongoing, and as of June 22, it has a currently airing anime adaptation that is getting a lot of buzz, it's getting a lot of press. A lot of people really like the Spy Family show, so hey, might as well go ahead and read the manga before you watch the show. Next up, we have Fruits Basket. Fruits Basket is the story of Toru Honda, who is a young high school girl who she's plucky, she moves out on her own, she can take care of herself. And through shenanigans, she ends up rooming with the cutest boy in school, the cutest boy in school's delinquent cousin, and their writer uncle. But she soon discovers a secret. All of the members of the Soma family, who she is rooming with, turn into animals of the Chinese zodiac when they are touched or hugged by a member of the opposite sex. So Fruits Basket, it is a romance. There are also some drama elements to it. I would definitely recommend this for anyone who is 13 up, although you could read it as low as if an 11-year-old. I got into the series myself when I was 11 or 12 and just devoured it. So Fruits Basket is a classic of the genre. So at the moment, it has been printed multiple times. What you'll want to get are the 12 omnibus editions, the collector's editions, because those are the most recent reprinting and they have a better translation than some of the older printings. A highly regarded anime adaptation of Fruits Basket just ended earlier this year, and there is a sequel series called Fruits Basket Another. It's a classic of the genre. It's cute, it's charming, it is very soap opera at some points. It gets even more soap opera as the series goes on. So I highly recommend it. Next up, we have Blue Period. Blue Period is about Yatora, who is a high school student who's just kind of coasting through life. He's just coasting through school. But one day he wanders into the art room of his school and immediately falls in love with this painting, gets drawn into the world of art. Blue Period is a good series for anyone who is interested in art because the author, Tsubasa Yamaguchi, does a good job explaining the techniques and explaining methods and explaining all the little details about how art works, to the point where some say that the series, especially in the earlier volumes, is a little too educational and a little less story-based. I respectfully disagree with that. You've got this wonderful story of Yatora and the rest of his classmates as they get into art, as Yatora learns more about the art world and what it takes to become a professional artist. This is recommended for high school students, 16 plus. It's a drama that also has coming of age elements. It is 7 volumes that is currently ongoing. So our final recommendation for the YA high school section is Chainsaw Man by Tatsuki Fujimoto. I'm going to tell you right up front, right off the bat, this one is fairly violent. There is a lot of gore. There is a lot of blood and guts, because the premise is that Denji, who is this young man, he's broke, he will do anything for money. He ends up becoming the Chainsaw Man by taking the power of a devil, and not the devil, a devil. The series uses devils as kind of interchangeable with demons. And so Denji becomes this chainsaw man and is taken on by an organization that exists to help fight demons and other devils. So a lot of the gore and a lot of the violence in this manga is kind of monster on monster sort of violence. But it is obviously a bit of a horror series. It's also a bit of a comedy because every character in this series, bless their hearts, are some form of idiots. And so you've got this very kind of gross in a good way fight scenes. And then a chapter later, it'll be everybody talking at the home base. And there are all these good, sweet characters who are also just dumber than a bag of bricks. I wouldn't recommend this for younger readers, but for anyone high school and older, this is a very fun, very well put together series that also has an upcoming anime adaptation. Again, what we know about the anime adaptation is that a teaser video has been released. I don't think we have a specific date yet, but I would bet on later 2022 or 2023 for the anime adaptation to be released. It is 11 volumes and it is completed. But next up, we have recommendations for manga targeted towards adults. There's Goodnight Punpun by Inio Asano. It is a drama slice of life coming of age story about Punpun, who's this average kid. He is average, has big dreams, has small dreams, and as he grows up in this town and grows into an adult. The manga is very stylized at some point. Punpun is always represented as this crudely drawn little bird man, as you can see in the cover image, while the rest of the world around him is represented as more realistic type of drawing. It's very good, very, very deep in certain aspects. I recommend a lot of Inio Asano's work. Some of his later series can get a little bit more weird and experimental. So Goodnight Punpun is definitely the most accessible for a casual audience. It is 7 volumes long and it is completed. Next up, we have A Life Turned Upside Down, My Dad's an Alcoholic. It is an autobiographical manga written and drawn by Mariko Kikuchi, talking about her father's alcoholism and how she grapples with it, how she learns to deal with it, and her feelings towards her father and his disease. There have been a lot of autobiographical manga that have been released in the West recently. I recommend, honestly, all of them that have been adapted and released here have been very good. But A Life Turned Upside Down, My Dad's an Alcoholic is a good place to start off with because it's 1 volume, it's completed. And if you are interested in it, it has inspired a film. A 2019 film was released. I don't think it is available streaming anywhere in the West, but I could be wrong at that point. Please chime up in the comments if I am wrong. But this is it's a very realistic, very grounded look at alcoholism. There is no sugarcoating. There is no Mariko Kikuchi has a lot of conflicting feelings about her father's alcoholism, and she lays them bare in this autobiography. Next up, we have Orange. Orange by Ichigo Tanaka. So with Orange, 16-year-old Takemiya Naho receives a mysterious letter from her future self. And what happens afterwards, what unravels, is this romance coming of age science fiction story where you've got a little bit of everything thrown in as Naho grapples with her life at the moment, as well as these letters from the future and what it means. Because the letters say, hey, there's a new transfer student. You need to keep an eye on him. So Orange is 2 volumes completed. It's very good, very charming. It's not heavy sci-fi, so it's a good recommendation for if you know someone who's interested in sci-fi, but isn't here for like the spaceships and the laser swords and the aliens aspect of it, I would recommend Orange. And there is a sequel series called Orange Future. My last recommendation for adults is Censor by Junji Ito. And really, you could do any Junji Ito recommendation for this. He is an icon of the horror genre. He has published so many works and so many short story collections. Most of his works are usually just 1 to 3 volumes long, so they are easily collectible. And unlike a lot of manga, which is published in paperback, Junji Ito is important enough and a big name enough that his manga in the West gets released and published in these very lovely, very glossy, more durable hardcover formats. So if you're looking for something that's a bit more durable than some of the other paperback that manga is published, that's durable, that also is just a classic, a horror icon, a master of the genre, I would go for literally anything by Junji Ito. Censor is his newest work, so that's the one that you would be most likely to find. But Tomie Uzumaki, any of his short story collections, he did a manga adaptation of the Mary Shelley novel Frankenstein, which I absolutely love. Any of those would be a wonderful fit for your library. So finally, we have long-running series. Now, these are very popular series. These are series that you might have heard about or might have heard your patrons talking about, or might have seen someone wearing a shirt with some of these characters on it, but they're also very, very long. All of these are 20 or more volumes long. So you will definitely want to examine your shelf space and examine your collection policy before committing to any of these series, if you want to commit to any of these series to begin with. So first up, we have My Hero Academia. My Hero Academia stars Izuku Midoriya. Midoriya is this poor kid, does not have superpowers, wants to get into a school for superpowered students, but then he meets All Might, who is the greatest hero, this superhero, basically this world's version of Superman. All Might is retiring. All Might helps Midoriya get powers. And the first part of the manga starts off as Midoriya navigating this new world that he is into. But eventually he comes into his own. He grows more into his powers, and we get a much greater story involving All Might's past, the history of his powers, a rising supervillain organization. If you have a patron who is interested in superheroes, who is interested in the MCU or Batman or anything like that, this is a lot more of a Western Marvel DC take on superheroes. Everyone's got their code name, everyone's got their superpower. Midoriya basically goes to an X-Men school. It's an action genre, it's superhero, it's recommended for anyone 13 or older, and it's over 30 volumes long, and it's still going. So it's a very good series, but if you want to commit to it, you're going to have to commit to it. It also has a lot of spin-off series, including My Hero Academia Vigilantes and My Hero Academia Team Up Missions. It also has a highly regarded anime adaptation that's in like its 5th season now. All right, so next in the very long series recommendation is Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba by Kiyoharu Gotoge. So Demon Slayer, and I'm not spoiling the series by telling you this, it literally happens in the first volume. It's about a young boy named Tanjiro whose village gets attacked by demons. And so he decides to start to train and become the best demon slayer, best person who can fight off the demons and protect his little sister, Nezuko, who was injured when demons attacked his village and now is part demon herself. It's an action series, it's fantasy. It also had a very popular anime adaptation. I would recommend it for high school students, though, again, depending on the middle schooler, they might enjoy this because there is some violence and there is a little bit of gore. Demon Slayer is 23 volumes long and it is completed. So next we have Kaguya-Sama, Love is War. This is a rom-com. It is the story of two leaders of the school student council, Kaguya and Miyuki, and they are head over heels in love with each other, but they are both stubborn jerks and they don't want to be the first person to confess that they're in love. So what happens is shenanigans ensue as Kaguya and Miyuki each come up with these situations where they try to force the other into a situation where they have to confess that they are in love so that they can win and not be the one who says, I love you. Do you want to go out with me? It starts off as a very, very silly rom-com between these two and continues to be a very silly rom-com between these two. But more characters are introduced and it becomes a series that more of an ensemble cast where we still have Kaguya and Miyuki being the focus of the story, but we have more characters introduced and more characters who also are, bless their hearts, dumb as a bag of bricks, because Kaguya and Miyuki, they are also dumb as a bag of bricks. They come up with these very intense, very nitty gritty plans to force the other to confess their love, and they cannot see the forest from the trees. All of these teenagers are dumb, and it is a very charming, very funny series that also had a wonderful anime adaptation currently in its third season. But the manga is 22 volumes and it's currently ongoing. Last up, we have Dr. Stone. It is a post-apocalyptic sci-fi sort of manga. High schooler Taiju wakes up in a strange new world where everybody is petrified. However, his science-loving friend Senku is still up. Senku is still around. Senku is going to get everything back to normal and restart civilization again using the power of science. So this has, it is like Cells at Work, it is also educational, though not as educational as Cells at Work. This one ties in various scientific concepts, as well as various sort of, basically kind of like a playbook of what you probably should do if you wake up in a post-apocalyptic future where there's nobody there. It's adventure, it's sci-fi in some aspects. It is 21 volumes and it is currently ongoing. However, the manga has already ended at 26 volumes in Japan. And so to wrap this up, here's a quick list of manga I personally recommend, but we just don't have enough time to talk about. So this is a very long list. I've read all of these and because again, I really like manga. It is one of my favorite genres. So if you have any questions about anything on this list, as well as anything just on any manga you have that you might think of adding to your collection or starting a collection, or what you would recommend to students, then, or even adults, because adults read manga also, then please drop me an email at kgill@mlc.lab.ms.us. I hope that this presentation, this webinar, at least did a good job explaining of just very basic manga 101. What is it? What are some series that I recommend? How do you read it? What are some terms that you know? And so I hope that when you inevitably get that little 13-year-old who's wearing that My Hero Academia shirt and asks, what kind of manga do you have? Or the mom of the 13-year-old wearing the My Hero Academia shirt who looks very harried and does not know anything about manga and asks, what should you recommend for my 13-year-old? You can at least use this to get started in the right direction.